All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. Of course, I am your tour guide around the swag, C. Wells, coming at you, and we're going to continue our tour around the swag with these 12-team previews. Today, we're going to take a stop off of exit 81 in North Louisiana. We're going to talk those Grambling State Tigers. We're going to see what the G-Men did last year, going to see what they do this year, and give my thoughts about the whole shebang. So, before we get started, as usual, I want you to check out the socials. Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Hit those notification, hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to anything that I drop. And then feel free to like, share, and comment on the videos, and just enjoy yourself. And we are in August now, and we are in football season. Matter of fact, Grambling's football team reported yesterday, and the practice starts today. So it's football, man. It's football season. Tomorrow is Swag Smoke live, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, as usual. DJ will be back in the house. Sunday, JSU preview dropping. I know a lot of y'all gonna want to see that. Wednesday next week is our Valley preview, so we're turning on through, man. We are making our way through. We're almost at the halfway point of the conference, and these things, before you know it, MEAC Swag Challenge will be here on August 27th, and UNC FAMU will also be here. So hey, we here now, man. Talking season is basically over now. It's football season, so a little bit more talking, but this is actual football. Teams are actually out there getting ready for the season, so it's football season as far as I'm concerned. And as you can see, I have my Swag Talk shirt on today, man. So fresh off the press, hey man, copy one, please. 1 for $25, 2 for $40. I can hook you up, man. Get you a Swag Talk shirt for the season. Man, they're nice and comfy. I will be rocking this all over the place, along with my Swag Smoke t-shirt. So I got, we got the tees, man. So y'all hit us up. If you want a Swag Talk tee, hit me up on my socials, and we can make that happen for you. So let's go ahead and let's talk Grambling football, man. We're gonna start with last season, the 2021 season. Was not a good season for Grambling. They finished 4-7, 3-5 in conference. That's coming off of a spring season where they didn't win a game. They didn't play very many games, but they didn't win a game that spring. So, the team was going through turmoil. Offensive coordinators coming and going, quarterbacks hitting the portal, coaches ultimately getting fired in mid-season, ending the season with an interim coach. So a lot of up and down turmoil. Offense never really got on track. Defense was pretty solid, though. I continue to say that. And when we go into the numbers, you'll see what I mean. So let's start by looking at the results from last season. Grambling opened up their season with a win over, ironically, Hue Jackson's offense in Tennessee State. Now, I'm not saying that's the offense that they're going to run at Grambling, but Hue Jackson was running the offense at Tennessee State under Eddie George. So Grambling defeated their future head coach in this game 16-10. And they looked like they were going to be off to the races. They dropped a 37-0 decision to Southern Miss, and then a 45-0 decision to Houston, and that led them into the State Fair Classic, which they lost to Prairie View by a score of 24-10. They picked up a victory over Alabama A&M 37-28. Defense played a tremendous game in that game. Really never allowed A&M a chance to get going in that game. They would drop a 24-20 game to Alcorn the following week, which put them into a game against Texas Southern on October 16th, which they won 34-20. Then they went to Tallahassee on October 30th and got beat by FAMU 26-3. That's the distraction committee game. I'm sure y'all know that. If y'all don't, then check that out. Pretty interesting, to say the least. November 6th, they came home and lost to Pine Bluff 33-26. They lost to Bethune Cookman 31-14 the next week. And then they closed out their season defeating Southern 29-26 in the Bayou Classic on a last-second field goal to win the 49th Bayou Classic. So Grambling, you know, like I said, this was not a typical Grambling season of any era. The team just never really was able to get going on offense. Defensively, they were, you know, pretty steady, but offensively, they just never really were able to find a stride. And now we're gonna look at some of these numbers before we get into the upcoming season. So Grambling, offensively, they averaged, they were last in the league in scoring offense at 16.9 points per game. They scored 22 touchdowns. They had 15 field goals and 20 extra points. They did get a 2-point conversion, and the defense recorded a safety. Defensively, they were fifth in scoring defense at 27.9 points per game. They allowed 42 touchdowns, 14 field goals, 39 extra points, and 1 safety. Total offense, Grambling was last in the league at 232 yards per game on offense. They averaged 3.9 yards per play. That was the lowest amount by almost a full yard per play. They scored 19 touchdowns as an offense, and just really never really got it going. Defensively, they were sixth in the league in total defense, 365 yards. They allowed 5.3 yards per play, which was about that would put them at 9th place in the season in the standings in yards per play. Rushing offense, they were 10th in the league at 110 yards per game. They had 7 touchdowns, 3.4 yards per carry. Again, you know, those numbers aren't great. That 3.4 yards per carry would have put them 10th in the league. Rushing defense, they were 8th in the league at 174 yards per game, 4.3 yards per play. Passing offense, they were last in the league in passing offense, averaging 122 yards per game. They had 12 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Defensively, they were 4th in the league in passing defense at 190 yards per game, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Grambling, as an offense, completed 44% of their passes, which was the worst in the league by about 6%. Defensively, like I said, they allowed a completion rate of 56%, which will put them right in the middle at 7th place. Looking at the return game, Grambling was 8th in the league in kickoff returns. They averaged 18.4 yards per return. Punt returns, they were 10th at 5.6 yards per return. Kicking game on kickoffs, Grambling averaged 53 yards per kick on kickoffs and 36.7 yards per kick net average. And then they had 10 touchbacks on the season. Field goals, they were 15 or 17, which led the league at 88%. Extra points, they were 4th in the league, 20 or 21 for 95%. Punting, they were 10th in the league. They averaged 35.6 yards per punt and a net average of 32.2 yards per punt. They did only allow 2.9 yards per return. So they were pretty solid in return, in return defense. Didn't allow a lot of yardage on returns. Defensively, they, as an offense, they were 8th in the league in sacks allowed with 27. Defensively, they were 3rd in the league in sacks at 30. So this defense did a good job of, getting pressure on the quarterback. 30 sacks is right up there with FAMU and Jackson State, by those two teams led by a big margin, but Grambling was right there. Defensively, on interceptions, they were 4th in the league with 10 interceptions on the season. So again, they did get their offense opportunities, but the offense just could not capitalize. They were last in the league in first downs, averaging 13 first downs a game. And the defense allowed 19.6 first downs per game, which was 8th place. Third down conversions, they were 11th in the league at 28.6%. 50 of 175, that's not going to win you very many games. Defensively, they were 6th in the league at 39.2%. 69 of 176 on fourth downs. They were actually 2nd in the league, 7 of 12 for 58%. The defense was 5th allowing a 44% completion rate, 8 of 18. Those third down conversions, turnovers, all of that is a killer. Penalties, Grambling was the second least penalized team in terms of yards per game at 48.8 yards per game in penalties, 586 yards, and they had 54 penalties on the season. So that was actually the least amount of total penalties. This team did not commit. If it was one thing I can say, this team did not, in terms of penalties, they did not shoot themselves in the foot. They found multiple other ways to do that. Defensively, the opponents averaged 76 yards per game, which was the third most in the league. 100 penalties for 912 yards. Grambling's opponents were the most penalized in the league. They were the only team. Actually, Alabama A&M's opponents were the only other team who had more than 90 penalties. So Grambling opponents penalized like crazy. Grambling themselves, not so much. They were 11th in red zone offense, 27 of 32 for 84%. They had 15 touchdowns, 7 running, and 8 passing. They were 12 of 12 on field goals. They had 1 fumble, 3 interceptions in the red zone, so 4 turnovers in the red zone. Defensively, they were 6th in the league in red zone defense, 35 of 43 for 81%. They allowed 27 touchdowns, 15 rushing, 12 passing. Opponents with 8 of 9 on field goals, and Grambling actually recorded 6 turnovers in the red zone, 2 fumbles, and 4 turnovers on downs. So that was one of those aspects where the defense, like I said, this defense was, they weren't great, but they were right there in the middle of rankings. They were pretty average defense. Which if your offense was about the same, you probably would have picked up a 2 or 3 more wins. But the offense just never really got going. C.J. Russell was the leading rusher on the season. He averaged 3.8 yards per carry and 429 total yards on the season. 112 carries, 1 touchdown. Grambling's longest run on the season was only 55 yards. So, I mean, that's still a pretty good run. But, for over the bulk of a season, most teams usually, top 60 on that at the least. But they didn't have a lot of explosive plays. Elijah Walker, who was the quarterback, he had 60 carries for 349 yards, 305 yards, net, 5.1 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. Daquarius Burton, 76 carries, 263 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. Alden Clark, 42 carries, 172 yards, and 1 touchdown. So as you can see, they didn't have a lot of people carrying the ball last season. The quarterbacks the quarterbacks probably got the bulk of the carries. When you look at the numbers, they were right there in the thick of it in terms of carries. Passing, Noah Biden actually was the leading passer on the season. He was 44 of 102, 476 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He completed 43% of his passes. He had a long of 60, which was the longest pass on the season for Grambling. Elijah Walker, 38 of 80, 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 47% completion rate. And then John Paul Pierce, 26 of 61, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He completed 42% of his passes. And then Alden Clark, 23 of 52, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 44% completion rate. So as you can see, nobody really was able to take hold of that job, and nobody was able to consistently produce. And that's one of the reasons offense just never really got going. They never really had anybody to take charge behind center. And that leads to problems, that leads to problems when you can't move the football consistently. You don't have a leader on your offense. You just don't really have anybody that's going to make a lot of plays. Greg White was a leading receiver, 35 catches, 514 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did average 14.6 yards per catch. Kobe Ross, 24 catches, 248 yards, 1 touchdown. Darrell Clark, 12 catches, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. Darrell James, 9 catches, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Donald Johnson, 12 catches, 89 yards, and C.J. Russell, 10 catches, 68 yards. So as you can see, nobody, they had 5 guys catch double-digit passes on the season, including 3 with 12 or less. So not a lot of options, because maybe it was because of quarterback play. Nobody really was able to be productive, although Greg White did have some pretty solid numbers considering, what the quarterback play was like. Defensively, Joshua Quiet led the team with 48 tackles. Also, Joshua Reed had 48 tackles. Blake Thomas also 48 tackles. So 3 guys led the team with 48 tackles. Fontenot 45. Mitchell 39 tackles for loss. Powell led the team with 12 tackles for loss. Sundiata Anderson 9.5 tackles for loss. Carter 6 tackles for loss. Thomas 5.5 and Green 5. Sacks Anderson 5.5. Thomas 3. Lewis 3. Powell 2.5. Carter 2.5. Interceptions. Mitchell led the team with 2 interceptions, and then they had a lot of guys with 1 on the season. So, pretty much interception was spread around. Punting, Garrett Urban did the punting on the season. He had 79 punts for 2,844 yards, 36 yards per punt average, along with 55. Urban also was the field goal kicker, 15 of 17 on the season, 88%. He was 8 of 8 from 20 to 29 yards, 6 of 6 from 30 to 39 yards, 1 of 3 from 40 plus. Had a longer 45, so he was he was reliable between 20 and 39 yards. He didn't miss a field goal in those 2 ranges. He was a little bit dicey in 40 plus, although they only kicked 3 field goals from that distance. So that's a guy that can get you points. You would expect maybe to settle for a few more field goals than they probably should have, but that's a guy that that could score the ball for you whenever you get in his range. He also was the kicking guy, so kickoff man. So he was, the whole special teams unit in terms of kicking. 46 kickoffs, 2,459 yards, average of 53 yards per kick, 10 touchbacks on the season, and importantly for Grambling, no kickoffs out of bounds. So no free yardage for anybody in that aspect, which is always a plus. Martin led the team with 10 punt returns for 38 yards, and they had 3 other guys with 1 return each. Donald Johnson had 10 kickoff returns for 184 yards, 18-yard average. Cash Foley, 5 returns, 133 yards, 26-yard average. Antonio Jones, 6 returns, 99 yards, 16.5 yards per return. So they didn't necessarily have anybody to stand out in the return game. So just, like I said, you can see, where the offense had their struggles and what led to those struggles, and, where the defense kind of bailed them out a bit. If the defense wasn't as solid as they were, this team probably would have had a worse record than they did. 4-7 is a rough season, but that defense really saved them in quite a few games. The offense did have a huge game in the Bayou Classic. The running game went nutty in that game, so they did show signs, but it was too little too late at that point. So let's take a look at the 2022 schedule, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Grambling upcoming season. So looking at the schedule, not a bad schedule in terms of any other games. So let's open up the season on September 3rd at Arkansas State. That's a pretty decent FBS matchup. Not a crazy game. It's a manageable game. First game under Hue Jackson, so it's kind of important to get off on a good foot. So solid opponent for the start of the season. We'll see how they handle that. The next game is a game I like a lot. It's in Shreveport against Northwestern State. Northwestern State hasn't been good the last few years. This is a good opportunity for Grambling. If they can figure out some of the questions about this team in the Arkansas State game, they can come out on a roll in this game. And the defense is solid enough, I think, to help them get a win in this game if the offense can find a way to move the football and put the ball in the end zone, I think they can win this game. September 17th, they go to Jackson State. That game is intriguing for, a few reasons. Obviously, Deion Sanders against Hue Jackson. Grambling and Jackson is just a matchup that, anything can happen. That's always a great matchup. It's not a conference game, so that's one thing that can help Grambling. It's a non-conference game, so whatever happens in this game, a dub would definitely, be a good thing, but a loss won't hurt you in the conference race. So that's one good thing. Right now, I think these two teams are not on the same level, but that doesn't mean that Grambling can't come out and compete in this game. So we'll see how the first couple of weeks lead up to this game. A big game right out the gate in the first 3 weeks. So really got to be prepared for that. September 24th, they stay on the road. They go to Bethune Cookman. This should be a good game. Bethune Cookman's offense seems to have some firepower. There are some good expectations for them for their defense. Grambling's defense should match up well with this offense. The offense of Grambling against the Bethune Cookman's defense is something that I will keep my eyes on. We don't know what this offense is going to be. We don't know who's going to, be the signal caller. The backfield is pretty solid. They have a nice bevy of receivers, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this should be an entertaining game. This is a game that I can see going either way. This is a true toss-up game. So that, that's an important game for Grambling in terms of standings. Moving on to October 1st, they head to Dallas to take on Prairie View in the State Fair Classic. Prairie View's won this game, the last few years. They have a new coach now. They lost quite a few guys from last season's team. So we'll see, how Prairie View is playing. This is a game that, if Grambling's kind of on the snide or, not really consistent, this could be the game that gets them going. This game, I like to say this matchup every year gives you a different type of game. Some years you get that offensive explosion. Some years you get a defensive battle. Last year was a game that Prairie View basically dominated, but Grambling's defense kept the game under control. The offense just never really could get anything going. So this could be a game that Grambling can break out. I would really look forward to seeing the moves that Grambling makes in this game and how they go after this game. October 8th, they stay on the road, so they'll be on the road for 4 straight weeks. A lot of traveling for this team. So this is a 4-week stretch, and most importantly, no bye week at this point. So they'll be playing 6 games in a row, but and actually all 6 of those games are away from home. 2 neutral site games and then 4 true road games. So a lot of traveling for this team early in the season. So October 8th, they go to Huntsville. A&M's offense, should be, similar to what they were before. And we don't know the extent of what their offense is going to be, but they're a team who can really get in there and make some problems for the opponents. So defensively, Alabama A&M, we don't know where they at. They got a gang of guys out the portal, and we don't know where they stand. So Grambling again, maybe an offense, a defense that they can have some success against. I'll be very eager to see what the offense is at this point. It's very important to come out of the fall camp with a guy at quarterback. Quarterback is not the end all be all to your offense. We've said that on Swag Smoke quite a few times, but you need to have that guy settled so that would not be a problem, going into the season. That can lead to consistency. The running game, should be able to be good to go. The offensive line concerns me a bit. They did lose a few guys off that line, but they do have a stud on that line. So Grambling was aggressive in the portal, but we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. They played their first game at home on October 15th against FAMU. So big first home game. Like I said, weeks into the season, first home game, October 15th. FAMU comes to town. You know, if you saw my FAMU preview, I feel like this team is 1 or 2 in the conference. I feel like this team is probably not gonna lose very many games. I think this team is ahead of Grambling right now. Now, that doesn't mean Grambling can't be better as the season goes on. I do expect Grambling to play tough. I mean, it's in the hole. Grambling's tough at home. So if they can get the ball to bounce their way a couple times, you never know. But right now, I give FAMU the edge in that one early. October 29th, after a bye week, they finally get a bye week. October 29th, they host Alcorn. This is a huge game for West Division standings. The West is going to be a crapshoot. We don't know who's going to come out of it. So it is very important to win these games. Grambling and Alcorn match up fairly well, especially in Grambling. Grambling is tough. They lost only about 4 last season, even with the offense that they had. So Alcorn, I picked them. You know, I feel like Alcorn is 1 or 2 in the division. So this is a big game for both teams. Grambling can win this game. It's not, it's not a lock for Alcorn. So this is a game. I'm not quite saying it's a toss-up, but at this point, I think Grambling does have a decent chance of winning this game. November 5th, they host UAPB. So they, after being on the road for basically the whole first part of the season, they finally come home for 3 straight games. They play Pine Bluff for homecoming. Pine Bluff did beat them last year, but I think Grambling is going to be ahead of Pine Bluff at this point because Pine Bluff, I don't really see them being too good of a team. So I think this is a game that Grambling will be favored in to win, especially if they're playing better than we expect them to play. So I think that this is a very crucial game for them, which leads into the Texas Southern game on November 12th. Big game. TSU, some people feel like TSU can win the division. The conference feels like TSU is going to finish last. The team can finish anywhere in the conference. Offense is outstanding. Can they stay consistent this year? Can the defense take a step and stop some people this season? That's going to be a key. Grambling did win this game last year, but this is a very interesting game. This game can settle a lot, or it can make a lot even more jumbled in the division, depending on how other games turn out. So this is a game I almost want to say it's a toss-up. At this point, I think, if you're on paper right now, offensively, TSU has the edge. Defensively, Grambling has the edge. How you feel about that matchup kind of leans to more how you feel about the defense being better. Grambling's offense on paper at this point in the season not being as experienced, especially playing together. So, this is a game that, late in the season, it can lean heavily one way or the other. Right now, it's a toss-up to me right now. And after the traditional bye week, Grambling and Southern hook up in New Orleans on November 26th. So this game is finally the Bayou Classic is finally back to being the Bayou Classic. 2021 was an odd year for Bayou Classics. First off, you had the Shreveport Classic, and then you had the Interim Bowl last fall, the Battle of the Interim Coaches. So this season, you finally have 2 head coaches who ain't going nowhere no time soon, back in New Orleans for the 2nd year in a row. Both teams, should be improved. This game could be like it has been in the last few years, could decide the West Division. One of these 2 teams maybe, still in the hunt. The other one may not be. But, this is going to be what the Bayou Classic is, and I'm excited for this game. And right now, who knows what's going to happen. I'll definitely label this a toss-up right now because both teams have questions. Both teams have some nice positives. But, right now, sitting here on August 3rd, this is just a don't know. So that's pretty much the schedule. Looking at this schedule, I can be all over the place with my prediction for Grambling. Some people feel like Grambling is going to struggle this season. Some people are not sold on Hue Jackson. Some people are all in on Hue Jackson, and they feel like Grambling is going to, win the division. running away. They did a great job in the portal, bringing in some guys, especially some weapons in the backfield. Maurice Washington from Nebraska is a guy who can get it done. I mean, he didn't have a lot of time playing in Nebraska because of various issues, but he's a guy that can be a playmaker. I mean, I love C.J. Russell, so I would like to see him, possibly continue to develop as a feature back for Grambling. The receivers, they brought in a ton of guys. They brought in some explosive guys. Ryan Peppins is a guy that a lot of people love. He's not a big guy, 5'8", 168, but he's a guy who was at Utah and came to Grambling. He's an explosive guy. You have Tyson Bordeaux, who's a 6'5" guy. So you have a mix of size and speed. You have a couple returning guys who are more than capable of making plays. So the receivers and the running backs, I think, are gonna be good. The question is quarterback, and it's not a question in terms of no talent. They brought in a lot of guys. I don't think they have very many returning quarterbacks on the team, but the guys they brought in are Kajaya Hollywayne from UCLA is a very talented guy. Quintarius Hawkins, a JUCO guy, he's very talented. Matter of fact, Hawkins and Bashawn McCray from Southern had a nice quarterback battle in that Hines Community College, Jones College matchup last season. So it could be a possible Bayou Classic rematch. Hawkins got the dub, but both guys kind of went toe to toe in that game. You have Chance Amy from Syracuse, and also Amani Gilmore, who came from North Texas. He's an A-Meet Louisiana guy, just like Elijah Walker was. So they have a bevy of options to choose from at quarterback, but it's gonna be we don't know who's gonna take charge. This battle is gonna be very interesting. If somebody can grab that job and take a hold of it, it's gonna go a long way in helping this offense develop. Like I said, I think the offensive line is gonna have some questions because I think they're replacing a few guys. So that's gonna definitely be something to keep an eye out on. Defensively, I think this defense is going to be solid. I mean, they still have some big time guys, and they brought in a lot of talent in the portal. So I think the defense is going to continue to be the solid portion of this team. Whether they can keep that offense going, that's gonna be a factor. They also return Garrett Urban, who's the kicker and punter, so that part is locked up. You don't have to worry about that. That's a guy that is more than capable of handling the job, so you don't have to worry about that. To me, everybody's eyes are gonna be on what Grambling's offense is, and that's gonna be the tell for the season. So I almost don't want to put a number on this because basically all of the games they have a winnable chance. Arkansas State and Jackson State are probably the two, and maybe FAMU are probably the three games that I would say that they have like a less than 75% chance of winning. My percentages are very unofficial and very non-scientific. Basically, they're guesses, but everybody else, I think Grambling has a 50% chance or better of beating. So I would say, if they can put it all together, 8-3 as the ceiling. I think 5-6 will probably be the minimum. So I'm gonna go. I'll go 7-4. Let's say 7-4 because I think this team can finish in the top 3 in the division. Who knows if they're gonna win it? It's possible, but I see them finishing 3rd or maybe 4th, depending on how other things play out. But this team is the foundation for next season. So a lot of talent, a lot of young guys, a lot of portal guys. It's gonna be an interesting beginning of the season. Can they find their way early? By the end of the season, you probably don't want to be playing this team because I think they'll be a whole lot better at the end than they are at the beginning in terms of chemistry and knowing who they are. So like I said, that's why I'm going 7-4, and we'll see how that turns out. So that's gonna do it for today's show. Remember, Swag Smoke coming at you 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, Jackson State preview. Wednesday, Valley preview. And we're gonna continue this tour around the Swag. So I'm your boy C. Well signing out, and y'all have a good day. Peace.